guys have all four seasons, or just is it always cold and gloomy the way people say?
Pretty much 80%, 80% winter and like 20%, 10% autumn, 10% summer.
Okay. It doesn't snow
Not
though.
too, not really. Maybe like for 1 week.
Okay. Okay.
Even then, it completely freezes over. It's not really. It's not nice snow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's
What's
all right. When we do get nice weather, it's really nice. Like it's nice and it's not humid. It's not too hot. It's enjoyable sunshine weather, but we just don't get it very often.
okay? So like, what's the coldest? Like, let's say you're in December. What's the coldest it
Mhm.
gets there?
Probably like minus -5, -6, -7, and that's not for very long. It's only like 1 or 2 weeks. It doesn't get like extreme cold. It gets to like it stays around 0 to 5 for most of winter, and then summer doesn't get above like 25 unless we have like a heat wave. It goes to 30, 35 Celsius, and
Yeah, I'm like,
but
I'm
yeah,
like, that must be Celsius because if that's Fahrenheit, that's crazy.
yeah, Celsius. Sorry, we don't do
Mhm.
Fahrenheit here very much.
Let me see what that is. So Celsius, you said -5. Well, that's like
Yeah.
23 degrees for us, and that's pretty cold. That's pretty cold.
That's cold, yeah. For LA, that must be.
Yeah, for LA, bro, in
You don't get it.
LA, people wear like coats and hats and jackets and like high 50s.
Oh wow, I'm
Yeah,
I'm in shorts when it's 0. I'm still in shorts.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm I'm from New York originally, so New York gets pretty cold. So when I first
yeah,
moved here, I was shocked that I didn't get it. But you stay here long enough in like really good weather, you start to pick up the same habits. You know,
you get used to it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think being a bodybuilder, I tend to run quite hot most of the time as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it suits me being here. I don't think I could. I've been to LA. I went to LA for 3 weeks in
Mhm.
2007. I've got family there, so we went for a wedding, and I really liked it. It was hot. It was like 40 degrees Celsius the entire time there, and it
Yeah.
was I had to be in front of an aircon unit the whole time. They would be in Persian. I should be
Mhm.
used to the heat, but like you said, you
Yeah,
get used to wherever you go. I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big Persian community in LA.
Mhm.
Is there a big Persian community in UK as well?
Yeah, pretty big. I think they first went to LA like back in the 60s, 70s. I think the ones who like had the money to get out of Iran,
Yeah,
they made it to LA. I think that was like the first choice. I don't know why. So you've got a lot of people that have been there for decades. The UK they came a little bit later, maybe like 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's when we came. Those who couldn't quite reach America ended up coming to the UK. We came because my dad's cousin lives here, so we had a connection. But yeah, we came when I was 6.
Oh, okay. So I didn't even realize you were born in Iran.
Yeah. I was born in the capital, Tehran, and we
Oh,
came here when I was 6 or 7. So it was like 93, 92, 93. We came here. I didn't know any English. I mean, I was only a kid, but I finished. I finished like third year of school here in Iranian school, and then I went into English school. Thrown in the deep end, didn't know anything.
I didn't know that. But I think most people assume you were born in UK.
Yeah, I think because I haven't gone back to Iran, and I guess my accent is quite British, and I guess I don't know. It's all I know really. I don't remember much of Iran, so it's a
Yeah.
very distant memory. But you know, I know where I'm from, and I went there. I went back when I was 16. to visit my
Right.
family. But then after that, it was quite hard because of the military. Like if they noticed that you were born in Iran, they have a tendency to say, right, you need to serve 2 years before you go back. So I didn't
Yeah,
quite want to do that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
stayed away.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. And when it comes to that, do you and your family mainly keep like you have like a UK culture, would you say, or you still have a lot of like culture and foods and stuff from Iran? Or
Oh, at my mum's house, it's all Iranian. It's
okay,
all the food. I speak Farsi with my mum and dad. Um, just that's just automatic. As soon as I'm with them, I go into Farsi mode. But I've got Iranian friends here that I grew up with, and we always spoke English. I think
yeah, yeah,
because we went to English school, my friends were English, and But in the home, my mum continued the culture. The New Year celebrations and the food,
yeah,
all the little things that she had growing up. She made sure I knew it all.
yeah,
So that was pretty nice. At the time, I didn't really think much of it, but when you get older and you look back, you appreciate that she kept the culture. So now I know a part of Iran. I've got a part of Iran in me just from my
yeah.
parents. So yeah,
It, it's funny because if somebody asks me to speak like my native language, right? Sometimes I feel like I don't really remember it, but once you see your mom, boom, it turns back
yeah,
on, right?
yeah. If I'm watching Iranian like news, I can barely understand it because it's formal. And if I'm speaking to Iranian fans at shows, I find it quite. I have to think about what I'm going to say. Like I have to search for words in my head.
Yeah,
With my mom, it's just yeah. I think to Leanne, it just sounds like mumbling. She doesn't even know I'm saying anything.
yeah,
It's just comfortable speaking with your parents. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Does it bother you when Americans say Iran instead of Iran?
No, no. My name's been my name's always hard to say, and I don't really, it doesn't bother me now. I'm not one to correct people in that sense because I grew up here, so I've learned loads of different ways of saying and doing things, so it doesn't bother me now.
And the correct pronunciation of your name is the way everybody says it here.
Well, the
Sasan.
Yes, Sasan is the
Okay.
Iranian Sasan. It's like a R instead of a A. Um, but I think everyone just says Sas because it's just that easy to say.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
Sasan, like the Americans, I find say that more. I don't know
yeah, yeah.
why. English, they'll say Sasan or
Yeah.
Sasan, Whereas when I'm in the US, people tend to say Sasan more. So I don't know why.
I've never actually heard that name. Is it a popular name there? No?
Yeah, it's pretty. I think it was like there was a dynasty thousands of years ago. It was called the Sasanian dynasty. So I think I guess the guy who started it was called Sasan. It's not like a religious name, but it's more like a historical name. So it's I don't really know any other. There's a few pop up on my Instagram, but I don't know any here.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, to go back to you moved here when you were 6,
Hmm.
so you were thrown right into school, right?
Yeah.
How was that experience? Did you get into any sports? Did you make friends easy, or did you know how kids are, or did they pick on you because you're English and stuff like that?
Yeah. Bit of everything. In fact, it wasn't even the English thing. I think the kids were really good. They were actually helping me learn words. They were like saying bus and pointing at a bus and making sure I could say it. And they were, I remember them very helpful. There was obviously the odd bully that would, try and pick on you and make you teach you swear words and all that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I pretty soon, my dad quickly put me into kickboxing classes.
Okay. Okay.
Just because I was already shy. I was very shy. I was very quiet. I was a bit of a chubby kid, not huge, but I was chubby. So he knew I'd get a little bit picked on. So he put me in kickboxing class, took me to the instructor and said, he just said, I just want you to toughen him up and teach him a bit of respect and all that kind of stuff. Ended up doing that for 7 years, which I didn't go out and use it in school, but when I was playing around at playtime and like I showed him some moves and word quickly spread, and then kids kind of just they didn't really bother me that much. And I remember one week there was a basketball, like someone came from a basketball league. He actually played in the NBA. He was called John Amici. He
Okay.
was a British NBA player. He'd retired, came back to the UK. He was doing like basketball camps up and down the country. I think I was 9. I was 10. He came to our school, and I just fell in love with basketball. I went home to my mum, and I was like, "Mum, I need to play basketball. I want to go to sign up at this basketball center in Manchester." So she took me on a Saturday morning, signed me up, and they just threw me in a team. Some practice sessions, and I ended up playing in that league for like 6 years. And I was sure that I was going to be an NBA player. Like that was my goal. Like my mum and dad bought me a big net. I was outside day and night, whether it was snowing, raining. If I didn't have homework or it wasn't mealtime, I was shooting hoops outside. And I got quite good, but I remember when I got to like 16, 15 years old, all my mates in the league just started growing taller and taller, and I
Mhm.
and I stayed at like 5'8", 5'9", and I just thought, oh, everyone was just shooting past me. Like I was skillful, but I just didn't have the height. I didn't have the jump height. So I kind of just started to fall out of love with it. I stopped kickboxing, and I got into weight training way before that. But I realized I was growing sideways instead of tall, so I just carried on weight training, and that was kind of cooler because it was muscle, and that's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted over everything. So yeah, I always had a sport, and that was my way of expressing myself because I was so quiet on the basketball court. In kickboxing classes, I was confident when I was physically doing something, which I think shows in the bodybuilding side as well because I'm still quite shy. But for some reason, I get on stage and it all kind of comes out. All the hard work you do in the gym. I think that's why I've always had that in me. I think we all do in a way as bodybuilders.
Yeah,
It's a
you
very
kind of
physical expression.
you kind of know how to turn it on. It's funny. Most bodybuilders were always shy kids. Like
Hmm.
you hardly talk to a bodybuilder. Even the most charismatic bodybuilder you meet, when they were in school, they were a shy kid. Most of them. You hardly ever hear bodybuilders say, "Yeah, I was a class clown."
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
you kind of yeah, you kind of build the confidence through the gym and through the stage, and then when you end up being the biggest guy at the gym, everybody talks to you.
Yeah,
So you build social skills just by virtue of everybody talking to you. You know.
exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly. It becomes easier. You get this confidence that you
yeah,
never had before.
yeah.
Yeah,
So sometimes I'll tell people, yeah, I was kind of a shy kid, and it's like, well, you talk a lot, and it's like, yeah,
mm,
now I talk a lot, and I'm
yeah.
comfortable talking now. But there was a time that I just didn't have, I had no desire to really talk to people and be social
I
at
was
all.
I was the exact same. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to stand up in class. I didn't want to do presentations. In groups, I was the quiet one. Um, in sports, I didn't talk. I was just like, I'll do stuff physically, but I never talked. I was exactly the same as you. And
Yeah,
now I can
yeah,
talk. Like you said, the confidence just it makes you. It gives you a voice.
yeah. I remember even in high school, I would sit with the athletes because I was an athlete, and they
Hmm.
wanted me to sit with. They would almost force me to sit with them. But as weird as it sounds, I kind of wanted to sit by myself. I thought they were obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't
I
really
was the
exist.
same. I was the same. I remember we did this. There was a Sunny D tournament going around the UK. So we had it was a 3-on-3. So our coach picked me and three other guys, and a substitute. We went to this tournament at the weekend, and we were doing really badly. And the team were just talking with the coach, and I just walked off with my basketball. I started walking down the street, just bouncing and just thinking. And everyone was like, "What the hell are you doing, Sass?" And I was like, "This is just, this is what I prefer. I want to get out, zone out, and realize what we're doing wrong." But everyone else was like, "Team," and yeah, totally relate, definitely.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you're like that, people think people might get the wrong message and think that you don't, you maybe think you're better than them or something like that. When you
Yeah,
just that's just your own process that you have to
definitely, definitely,
you
yeah.
kind of do. So okay, you said you were weight training even during the basketball
hmm
and kickboxing. So what initially did the sports make you start lifting weights or something else?
No, no, it was more the movies, I guess.
Okay,
Arnold
yeah.
and Stallone, Jean-Claude
Bruce
Van
Lee.
Damme. I think, hey, Bruce Lee,
No,
yeah,
no,
Wesley
yeah.
Snipes. Because I was
Okay,
kickboxing,
okay.
that was the first. That was the first thing I did. I think I was 10. Because of kickboxing and our family friends who did the kickboxing with me. He was older. He used to take me to the classes, drop me off. He loved the martial arts movies. Like if there was a family function, we'd go in his room. We'd just put martial arts movies on all night. So I got into that, and I noticed the physiques, muscle and definition. And remember, I was 12 or 13. We were coming out of a family party, and I saw a shooting star. So I said to my auntie, I was like, I just saw a shooting star. She was like, well, we'll make a wish. Um, it might come true. And my wish was I want to be built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
That was legitimately my wish. Anyway, like a year or two later, I remember one summer holiday. I went to a shop with my mum and bought a set of weights. I was 13. Yeah, I was 13. Bought a set of weights. It was a York set, pretty good set, like bench, bars, the swivel at the end to do hamstrings and quads, dumbbells, and it came with a poster. It came with a poster of this little York cartoon, doing all the different exercises for every muscle group, all the way from the traps, all the way down to your quads and hamstrings. So every morning and every night after school, I'd copy every exercise on this poster every day, and then I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing everything I could on this poster. And then like the end of summer, I went back to school, and all the kids were like, they'd already noticed I was bulking up a bit. I was just eating my mum's food, and that's when I found the love for training for myself. There was no obviously I didn't have YouTube, I didn't have magazines, I didn't know bodybuilding competitions was a thing. I just thought this is going to make me big and muscular and strong,
yeah.
and I just loved it. It was in the background for years until I joined my college gym, and people started noticing me. And then I joined the proper gym when I was 18, and then bodybuilders started saying, you need to compete. You'll do really well, and I just laugh it off. I just love to train. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get on stage. And I looked at the magazines, and I thought I would never look like that. That's just something like totally extreme, out of this world. But over the years, I just grew and grew, and then ended up getting on stage at 27. So I wasn't in a rush. I was just training. Um, yeah, I got on stage at 27 years old. I was about 210 pounds, so I already had quite a decent amount of muscle mass, muscle maturity by that point, because I pretty much bulked for 15 years.
Damn. Well, that's pretty late for most people. 27, your
hmm
first show that's pretty late. Okay, what was your first introduction to bodybuilding? Like was there any bodybuilders you saw that made you feel like you wanted to compete?
Um, yeah, the gym I joined when I was 18. There was two personal trainers, and it was a big gym, like 5,000 members, huge. There was two personal trainers. They were like celebrities, a guy and a girl. And the guy, to me, was like Arnold. He was big. Like he had ridiculous quads and calves. He had big round cap delts, big arms, and he lived the bodybuilding lifestyle. I don't think he competed, but he lived everything bodybuilding. So I'd ask him for advice, what supplements to take, and he was the one who kind of I looked at in person and I thought, that's really cool. That's a cool physique. I want to be that big. Shortly after, the gym brought a guy who had just competed in a national show to kind of do some posing just on the gym floor. Um, and then he took his top off and he started doing like a lat spread. And I was like, wow, I've never seen lats that wide. He had a tiny waist, huge lats. His physique was unreal. It was like almost like a smaller Kai Green to me back then. It was crazy. That was the first true contest ready bodybuilder I saw, and I started to think, I was intrigued, like I was interested. Then there was a couple of lads who competed, older guys, and they were saying to me, like, Sass, you've got the genetics, you're growing evenly, you've got no lagging body parts. I had full round muscle bellies and good skin texture and all that stuff. And they said, you should think about competing. But I just kind of, it looked, to me, it felt like so much, something I could never achieve. Like I didn't, inside myself, I didn't really believe it. And then there was a magazine I got at an airport once on the way to Spain on holiday, and Mark Dugdale was on the front, and he looked amazing. Like that's the first physique I saw on the magazine cover, and I thought, right, I want to look like this, or at least the smaller version. And he had a diet inside it, typical Flex magazine style diet. So I got home and I started copying it. Then I started living the lifestyle as much as I could. I was watching Ronnie Coleman, Lee Priest, Jay Cutler, kind of just Phil Heath. I got sucked into the world, meals every 2 to 3 hours, 8 hours sleep a night, fluid, and all that kind of thing. And it just kind of progressed. Like 22, 23, I got into the PED side of things, but I was already over 200 pounds. So I started thinking, okay, maybe I've got something. But I was just too scared to compete. I don't think I wanted. I was never a lean kid, so I thought, what if I prep and I just don't get in shape? I don't. I get on stage fat. But it got to like 25 when I went to LA for my cousin's wedding. We spent 3 weeks there. I was in like a Planet Fitness or 24-hour fitness or something like that. And 3 guys came up to me in the gym and they were like, "Excuse me, are you pro bodybuilder?" That's kind of, it hit me then. I thought maybe I should just give it a go. I've got this far. I've got a physique that kind of shows it. So when I got back home, I got put in touch with someone who kind of looked over me and helped me a little bit with my first prep. And I got on stage and I was probably like 8 pounds off condition. I wasn't shredded, but I was good enough and I won. And I got through to the nationals that year, which I skipped because I needed to know I could get shredded. So I skipped it. And then my second show when I was 28, my goal was to get absolutely peeled. And I almost killed myself doing it. Like 2-3 hours cardio a day, like 30 grams of carbs a day, going hypo 5 times a day from six weeks out without even using insulin. But I got shredded and I got on stage and the judges straight away said, this could be the next pro coming out of the UK. That was my second show. So it all kind of happened really fast. But that year I lost the British to rude boy Ricardo Correa. I don't know if you know
Oh
him.
yeah.
Yeah, he won the
Man.
British. And then the year after that, I lost it to Nathan Diasha. He came first, I came second. He won his pro card. And then the year after Nathan, I won my pro card. So it all happened very fast from someone who just, I didn't know if I wanted to compete, to pro, it was like 3 years. And then I was straight to the States, Chicago, 8 months later competing. So it all happened really fast to me. I didn't even have time to kind of let it sink in.
Yeah. Okay. This was around what, 2012,
Around
13 ish.
15, yeah, 12 was my first show. 15 was when I won my pro card. 16 was my pro debut.
Also,
Yeah.
by the time you got into it, it was Phil Heath was the guy.
Yeah, he was Mr. O. Yeah, yeah, he was like yeah, he was just starting to win. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Who
yeah.
who who was the main guys you kind of maybe looked up to or like modeled their physique like when you first got when you got into it around that time?
Phil was the first. I bought his DVD back in probably 2009, 2010. So years before I competed. I loved his physique. I think we were with a similar height, kind of similar bone structure in the sense that he's not really wide
Mhm.
clavicle. He's obviously he's got the crazy muscle bellies, but structurally I felt like I could relate most to Phil. I loved Lee
Definitely.
Priest. I loved Jay Cutler. Jay probably I idolized in a lot of ways, not just as a physique. Ronnie, I loved Ronnie. I mean, who didn't love Ronnie? But he wasn't someone I could relate to, you know. So I did a lot of studying on Phil and how he trained, Lee and how he trained, and Jay and Ronnie. Those four seem to be the ones that I'd studied, like their form, their rep ranges, their exercise selection. Even though they were all very different to each other, I kind of picked stuff from every one of them and tried it. And if I liked it, I carried it on with my own training. If I didn't, I
Mhm.
stopped. Even Dorian obviously because he was English, and I did like his style of training, but it didn't fully suit me. I didn't like the low volume. So yeah, like as far as training and food went, I kind of just off season. I was doing mostly Lee Priest type stuff. I'd eat I'd eat junk food. I'd eat my mum's food. I didn't really. I just made sure. Back then, the guys in my gym, they were huge. They were some big guys back then, and the only advice they said off season was every 2 to 3 hours, just eat. It doesn't matter where you are. If you haven't got food, go and grab a sandwich. Eat every 3 hours. Don't be scared to eat, non-bodybuilder foods. It was very much, if you're hungry, just eat it. If it's not nailed to the kitchen table, eat it. So we were pushed on big food, like big calorie intake, and heavy, like high volume. That was the thing back then with our area of gyms and stuff. So that's kind of
Do you
what I got
think
in.
okay, so let's say once your calories are past a certain point, maybe 6,000 calories or so,
Mhm.
do you think it matters how clean your calories are, given that you still meet your protein requirements and
Yeah,
you're not going like over the top as far as just eating pizza and wings every
yeah,
day? Do you think
yeah.
it really matters?
No, I think with me personally, my clean cap is like 5,000. It's pretty low, and then um, after that, it's pretty much like, for example, this last off season is probably the best off season I've ever had. The 6 months leading into the Detroit Pro prep. Um, I worked my clean food up from my last show up to like 5,000, 5,500 calories. Carbs were pretty high, but I was done. My stomach was full all day, and I just felt uncomfortable. So I scaled back to 4,500 clean, and then after
Mhm.
that, I started adding. So I replaced one meal with a cheat. Nothing crazy. It was like post workout would have been 2 foot long steak and cheese subways. That was like almost 2,000 calories with a few cookies. But I could eat that, and then 2 hours later, I could eat some chicken and rice. So I knew I was okay digesting that. So there's one meal that most people probably wouldn't go to every day. And then fast forward 1 month later, I replaced my meal four, which was the second to last meal of the day, with whatever I wanted. It kind of swapped between like a steak and fried rice Chinese style takeaway or Domino's pizza, and I even digest them very well. So those two meals were giving me a good 3,000 calories, and they weren't clean. And along with that, I would have cookies or a muffin or a donut, just or a little dessert like a one slice of cheesecake or something, just to get the calories even higher. Because I needed about 7,000 to gain. That's how much I need in the off season. I need quite a lot of food for my size. But yeah, the rest of the I'd say those 3,500 calories were pretty unclean. The rest were oats, whey, eggs, chicken, rice, that kind of thing. And two of them were probably blended meals. Meal one and my last meal were like 1,500 calorie shakes, which were oats, honey. That's where the honey comes in at like 100 grams. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't. I honestly, I've tried. I've tried 100% clean off seasons. I don't know what it is. If it's the volume or it's if it gets digested too easily for me, like too well. I don't tend to grow and I'm miserable just looking at this big plate of chicken and rice. So maybe mentally I'm not happy, so my gut doesn't always respond. But if I'm eating something I'm enjoying, I tend to just eat it, and I'm ready to eat again in 2-3 hours.
Yeah. So there's usually there's a range, but let's say there's two different kind of bodybuilders, right? Somebody like you who needs a ton of food to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas eating clean, the issue is to reach the amount of calories you need. It's really difficult. And then somebody like me who I can grow on pretty small amount of food.
Yeah.
But so I was able to do off seasons with clean food. Because off season for me is like 4,500 calories max, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed just comparing the contrasting pictures is I looked exactly the same, whether because I did a few off seasons with Compton where it was all clean food, and I got up to maybe 300, 310.
Yeah.
Pretty soft, not ridiculously soft, but as you can imagine, I'm 5'11", so at the time I was in my mid-20s, so pretty soft 310. Then I did the same thing where there's a mix, like I'll have my chicken and rice, I'll have my eggs and oatmeal, but then if I'm craving some cookies or cheesecake, I'll have it. I'll stop and get a burger for the last meal, and once again I was about 310, same conditions. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, why? What's the point of holding myself back if it's really the same look?
I agree. I exactly the same as you. I remember one off season I let Chris Acito, he does my preps. Early on, when I first started working with him, I said, we'll do off season together as well, just to see if he did anything. But all he did was push the clean food up, which any coach would.
Yeah.
But it was like beef. The steak meals were going up to like 12-ounce cooked, 14-ounce cooked, then chicken after that. And it was hard to eat. Like it was not fun. I'd sit and look at this big plate of steak and rice, and I knew it was going to take me 45 minutes to eat. It was an event that I just didn't want to do every 3 hours. I think that made me miserable and not enjoy it. I need to enjoy my off season, and I look the same. Like you said, if I did that compared to a 60-40 split, clean and unclean food, by the end of the off season, if anything, the when I had the junk food, I'd look fuller, I'd look bigger, I'd be stronger, I'd be happier. Yeah, I might carry a little bit more body fat, but not that much. And in prep, I get lean the same speed. I've started preps lean and I've started preps soft. It all comes off quite at the same speed for me. Like I can still get shredded. So why not just enjoy it? If anything, like I said, it holds me back when I do clean off seasons, just because I need so much food. And also mentally, I think you should definitely try and switch off, because some people, not everyone, but when prep comes round, you want to be like ready to hit 100% clean food because you've had your fun. So you've got no cravings. I think that's a big psychological method mindset that I try and shoot for. Is I get to prep and I'm ready to prep. Like I'm ready for a good 12, 14 weeks, whatever it is. But if I get to prep and I'm just like, there's no switch, everything's still the same, you just cut the food down. For me, I just get bored. And bodybuilding for me is fun and passion. It's not a science. It was never the textbook. I wasn't. I have to have fun with it. If I don't have fun with bodybuilding, I tend to just not work as hard. And I'm having the most fun I've ever had now, and my physique shows it. I think definitely.
the one of the good things about starting bodybuilding later is you started bodybuilding after you were already a grown man, so
Yeah.
you have a lot better perspective in on life than
Mm-hmm.
most people who got into most guys that get into bodybuilding as teenagers when they don't even understand life. They never
Yeah.
became a man. So it's really skewed. Like guys that hit me up at teenagers, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to quit my job, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you need more jobs, not less jobs. You need more
Yeah.
money. Why
Yeah.
would you
It's not
quit your
cheap.
job? Yeah. But this is something that at 27 you understand. So
Mm-hmm.
you also understand that if it's not fun, you're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know, so whereas people get into younger, they nitpick every little thing. Hey, how slow should my negative be? What
Mm-hmm.
split is push pull legs? How about put? And I'm like, bro, which do you like? Which do you enjoy?
Yeah.
Let's start
Exactly.
there. Because if you can't stick to it, you're not gonna go very far.
Exactly. That's exactly what I say to everyone.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I've worked with Compton on and off. Compton started as a teenager, but
Mm-hmm.
he was retired before he was 30. Before
Yeah.
he retired at like 26, right? And that's very common. Guys
Yeah.
who start young kind of burn out really fast because
Yeah.
they made it. They made it like work, and they weren't have. Compton didn't have
Yeah.
fun. He talks about it. He didn't have any fun. It was just like 100% everything
Yeah.
clean. He didn't have cheat meals, anything like that. He didn't go
Yeah.
to, so
No,
I think that's
I
important.
100%. I lived my life. I look back in my 20s. I would go out. I played rugby at university. I'd go out with a rugby team and we'd drink. And then after uni, I'd go out at the weekends. I'd always go out with my friends, whether it's food, drinking. I'm not ashamed of it. I think, we went and partied a lot. And then 6 days a week, I'd train, I'd work. But I had a balance. And at the time, I would look at some of the more hardcore bodybuilders in the gym and I think, should I be, maybe I shouldn't go out. But looking back, I'm glad I did because it definitely gave me that maturity and it gave me the balance that I needed and it gave me that kind of the willingness to go, okay, I'm ready to compete now, and I'll put that all aside. And yeah, 100%. I agree with what you're saying.
Anybody I've known that didn't have any balance during their career, after the fact, they admit that. Even Fuad has admitted they don't think they would be any better. They don't think they would have been any better if um, if they, if they had, if they didn't have balance, right?
Yep.
If that makes sense, like
Yep.
they feel like
Yep.
they could have still lived their life
Yep.
and still been just as good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I heard you mention that on a podcast about just just having balance, being able to have your family and being able to do the sport. The truth that most people don't realize is you're one of the top bodybuilders in the world, and you've probably had the most balance, where you took 6 years off and had a family the whole nine,
Yeah.
and you're beating a lot of guys who don't have balance. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay, to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world, you have to have the genetics first of all, right?
Mm-hmm. Of
So
course.
the truth, I think you have people who may not have the genetics, and they think that if they just push away their family and loved ones, and they just have no balance,
Yep.
they're gonna be Mr. Olympia. Where the truth is
Yep.
that if it's in your cards, you're gonna get there just
Yep.
by doing the work. You can do it with balance, though.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Look at guys like Dexter. Um, they didn't peak that early. They didn't have any major injuries because they were going in for ridiculously big lifts, or they didn't push their body weight. They didn't balloon up one off season. It was like a nice steady incline. Um, no crazy peaks, no crazy troughs. That's what I've seen. I think I was maybe on the way to that before I had that 6 years off. I was kind of fighting with the fact that I wanted to win and I relied on prize money and sponsorships. So I headed in the wrong direction and I realized and I snapped out of it and I thought, right, I need to stop because I wasn't happy because I was focusing on the things that I shouldn't have been focused on, exactly what you just said. I lost sight of the balance, and I became this kind of just gold hungry bodybuilder, which just wasn't me. It wasn't my personality at all. So I needed to pull back. I wanted to start a family and a business, and that completely reset my balance. And now that I've come back with all these other things that I've got going on in my life, I'm able to be the best bodybuilder. I used to look at guys who would go to Kuwait for 6 months at a time, and yeah, it worked for some of them, but I'm always that guy that I need the kind of hecticness at home. I need my dog, my kids. I want my friends, and I want to be in this routine, because if I'm just 100% all out bodybuilding, I will think myself and crash too much. Like, you'll just be thinking about food and the training all the time. I need all that to switch off, so I can switch it on when I need to switch it on. It's like when I get sent podcasts or people talking about me going into a show, I kind of ignore it almost, because I don't want any hype. I don't want to know what's going on. I want to stay really level headed and just chilled. Like, I'm the night before a show, I'm watching my car programs, or I was watching Transformers. Like, I switch it on when it's time to switch it on, and I do really well like that. It was Sean Roden who told me, actually. I won my pro card, and Sean and Chris came to the UK to do a tour, and I met them one night at the hotel they were staying. And Sean was sat opposite me, and he turned around and he goes, "So you've got your pro card now?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "All right, I've got 2 words of advice for you, and you just always remember this." He said, "One is have thick skin, and 2 is know when to take your foot off the pedal, which is going to be often." He said, "Do not go 100 miles an hour all the time, because you will crash and you'll burn very, very, very soon." So I didn't 100% know what that meant at the time, but over the years, seeing other people peak and crash, I realized exactly what he meant, especially now more than ever, because I'm in the most kind of content, chilled, peaceful place I've ever been. And it's no coincidence that my bodybuilding career started to pick up again, because my mind and body is just in that kind of nice, comfortable place. Yeah, 100%.
I've noticed, you probably noticed this too. You're one of the guys that people want to see win. Even before you left, people want to see you win, because I think there's like, people can relate to you in the fact that you don't hold yourself on a pedestal in any way.
Yeah,
You come off as just a regular guy, which everybody is a regular guy. I know that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like, you come off like, just, let me do the show. You're not necessarily here saying there's nothing wrong with this, but you're not the guy to say, well, I'm gonna beat this person and beat this person.
mm-hmm.
And you kind of just, let me go into the show, and then you always deliver, right?
Yeah,
So I think people like to feel like this is like the working man's
yeah,
bodybuilder,
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
who's, not the youngest, not the tallest, not the widest, but out bodybuilds everybody,
yeah.
right? And
Oh,
this
yeah,
is why, mhm,
yeah. No, that's it. That's it.
yeah, and this is why a lot of people wanted to see you beat Andrew, not because everybody loves Andrew, so it's
Of
nothing
course, yeah.
against Andrew. Everybody loves his physique, but the thing is that um a lot of the genetic elite guys don't bring 100%,
Yeah,
and I think as fans, people want to see people get rewarded who are bringing 100%,
mm-hmm.
right? Which
Yep.
doesn't always mean that if you're 100%, you're gonna beat one of the best in the world, but from a fan standpoint, that's what people want to see,
Of
right?
course, of course.
They want people get.
It's the whole, keep working hard and you'll achieve your goal type quote. I think for me, if I turn into the person, which is like you said, nothing wrong with saying, "I'm going to beat this guy," and he's not gonna touch me on this stage, and it's all right if that motivates you in a good way. But the way I see it, I like to focus on what I can control 100% of the time, which is my food, my cardio, my training, my own world. I can't control Andrew or Sergio or Bonac. I can't, when I woke up 3 days out, 4 days out, and I opened Instagram and it was flooded. Andrew's doing the show, and in that moment, I could have, if I was that guy who focused on my competitors, or just focused on how good I am and that I should win, that would have started to mentally break me down, straight away. I looked at the message and I thought, okay. My missus came downstairs. She was like, "So Andrew's doing it." I was like, "Yeah." And then I said, "Look, I'm going to come up against people like Andrew. Whether it's this stage or on an Olympia stage, anyone can show up at any time. If that affected me, then what's the point? Like, I'm not Andrew. I'm not Ronnie Coleman. If I'm not that elite. All I can do is make sure I'm bringing my absolute best, and that's going to be a win for me, regardless of who places ahead or below me." Now, that mentality for me keeps me content and peaceful. And like I said, that affects my physique. I can go in and train. It doesn't. If someone sat there thinking, "Oh, why is this guy doing the show? This could have been my win." That would affect my appetite, my training session, my cardio session, my sleep, and then you're not going to be at your 100% best. So over the years, I've learned that just be the guy who lifts. Like I'm the same guy. I'm the same as everyone else who goes in and does a few bicep curls. Yeah, I do it to an extreme level, but my passion is the same thing. I go in the gym to try and improve my physique. I'm lucky to be able to call this a job. I'm lucky to be able to go out to different countries and get on stage and put on a show. That there's nothing to be stressed or down or worried about. It's just everything is, it's like a dream for me. So that's the way I see it. And that affects me in a positive way in the gym and my diet. This has been the easiest prep ever because I think my mindset is in such a good place that nothing can, I almost feel bulletproof, not in an egotistical way. Like nothing can hurt me now. I've just got control of what I can control, and I just can't wait to get back out there again. That's the mindset I'm in. So, and I wish everyone could kind of feel like that because it would make everyone a better bodybuilder. Those guys who mentally beat themselves up in prep because of who they go up against. I can see it. I can see it in the pump room. You look around and there's some guys who are looking around and looking at you thinking, I used to think everyone's bigger than me and harder than me backstage, and you can easily let that start to eat away at your pump and your fullness. You literally deflate there and then. So you can't let that kind of mindset get to you.
You can go to, this happens the whole time. You can go to the gym and somebody can literally be half your size.
Yeah.
But in your head, you're like, yo, that guy is bigger than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, every time I'm backstage and I'm like, well, everyone is bigger than me. And usually a lot of people are bigger than me, but I look at their vascularity and I think, oh, he's harder than me. But that doesn't translate on stage, But seeing Andrew, yeah, that guy was
he's crazy.
He's an alien. I call him an alien. He's ridiculous.
No, he looks absolutely, in person. You can't describe it. It doesn't even look right. So it's like I think it's hard to have a guy looking like that losing, but the thing is that I think people are tired. It's like this. It's like it almost seems too easy for him. Mm-hmm. Now we don't know. Behind closed doors, he could be working harder than everybody for all we know.
Yeah.
But just the way it looks, like I was there at Texas when he won, and the guy kind of comes on stage and it looks like he's not even posing. He's just kind of like,
Yeah.
And then you're like, these guys are in better condition than him. They're better peaked than him. They're even outposing him. But unfortunately, he just looks like on a different level. Yeah, it's like, so I'm like, fuck. Then so I get the judges. They're like, well, it's just different. But I think people just want him to bring it. I think that's it more than anything.
He's just such a overpowering physique, and he has got the small waist and the wide shoulders, and his chest and his delts, they just pop off. So it's super impressive, and I can understand why. At the end of the day, it's a freak show, so I can understand why the judges reward him. He's he's the guy everyone looks at and thinks, "Wow, what is that? That's not real," you know.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm not mad. I mean, going into Germany, it was meant to be a walk in the park for Andrew, and we all knew it. Like, Sergio would message me and like, did this guy have to jump in? And it was meant to be me and Sergio going for it and having some fun. But at the same time, no one was. I went into it thinking, okay, I stood with Bonac and I didn't look stupid. Bonac's one of the best. Maybe if I can show something if I can stand with Andrew and show something, condition at least, it would still help my stock and my popularity. But when they started putting me in the center and kept me there, and I was thinking, I was just kind of posing, and I got off stage and I was thinking, I was in the center. I was in the center, for most of that prejudging. I was like, no, I couldn't, no way. Like, that's Andrew. And then I came out to the crowd and Sean Clarita came up to me and people were hounding me for pictures and everyone was like, you've got this sauce, this is yours. And I was like, no, I never in a million years would I have thought I would push Andrew, and I beat him in prejudging by a point. To me, that was like winning the Olympia in my mind. Yeah, it was insane. It was insane.
The guy is a top 5 Olympian,
Mm.
and only because he's been maybe less than 90%. The guy can't actually be Miss Olympia, and you beat
100%.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you beat him in prejudging.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you beat the guy in fair and square. You beat him in prejudging, right?
Yeah.
So I think that definitely says a lot about you and what you bring. But
Yeah. I can sneak in if the big guys are off. I can sneak in with that condition. I'll get
yeah,
them.
yeah.
I'll get them sweating a little bit at least. He said to me at the end of the day, he came up to me after the finals. He's like, "You got me sweating. No, usually I'm the one making everyone else sweat." He shook my hand and he was he was like, "Thank you for pushing me." I don't think
Yeah.
he expected it at all.
No, he actually said that. Yeah, he said that on RX Muscle as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now here's the thing: everybody wants to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said earlier, people will dodge shows and try to find a show and this and that because they don't want to get second, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't realize, like what you just said, what that can do for your stock, and even how even the judges perceive you, how the fans and judges perceive you. Sometimes second is just as good as first. Sometimes even better.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
like if you think about Martin getting second to Nick last year,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the biggest thing that happened to his career
Yep.
to put him in a conversation. And maybe if he would have won, the convo would have, maybe then people would have been like, maybe he shouldn't have beat Nick.
Yeah.
And maybe Nick would have been more of the, because people do love the underdog, but if the underdog wins prematurely, now people are like, oh, he's overrated, right?
100%. I say it all the time. If Bonac didn't do Detroit, and if I would have won the show, it wouldn't have been. People might have said, "Yeah, well, Sass didn't have much of a challenge." It would have been, And then same with Germany, but because I went up against these two giants, I think it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Like I was very grateful that they were there, and it's just building my momentum now. And I'm definitely. I don't go. I want to win. I want to get to Olympia. But I don't want to win an easy show. I'd like to come up against the best. Like coming up against the best in the league is, for me, is a proper competition. People can see exactly how good I am, and you can't hide. You can't hide when you've got some of the top 6. So I 100%. I'm there to fight. I like being the underdog. So I'm going to keep going 100%. As long as my body takes it, I'm going to keep going.
Well, because what happens is when you're no longer the underdog, the conversations. We see with Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, we don't want to see Andrew win no more, and it's like that's why sometimes it's good to be the underdog for a while. You eventually you want to win, but it's good to play that role for a while because it actually helps your career, right? Yeah. we look in hindsight and say, I think Jay should have won 2001. But the truth is that if Jay would have beat Ronnie in 2001, Jay wouldn't have been the Jay he is, because people would have been like,
Exactly.
I don't know, man. Ronnie is bigger. Ronnie is
Yeah.
Ronnie. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they just gave it to him because he's, a good looking young guy. That's it. That's why he got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it kind of actually tainted his name. Oh, they just
Mm.
gave it to him too early. They just wanted to, so sometimes is
100%.
yeah. So sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. But okay,
Definitely.
so we talked about the past. Let's talk about the future. What shows? I know it might not all be set in stone, depending on how the show goes. But what shows are you planning to do now, moving forward?
So the show that is set in stone is Cali. I'm going to do Cali
Okay.
in 5 weeks. Cali because obviously there's New York and Pittsburgh. I think that's in between now and Cali. But I'd like a little bit of time to try and see if Chris can bring me in a little bit fuller, a little bit rounder. So if I was to do New York, it'd be quite soon. That's more travel to the US, Pittsburgh, sorry, and also Pittsburgh is going to be. It's a big show. I want to go up against the best, but that would be going into the Dragons Den with Nick and Derek and Martin and all those guys, Crizzo. So I think Cali is a good pick for me because it's enough time to kind of let my body fill out a little bit from these two peaks. Give some time between the travel, and then I've done Cali twice. I've come second twice. I like the people. I like the show. Um, so I would like to do Cali, and I like doing USA. I mean, I love Europe, but I think going to the USA it's got a little bit of a different vibe. I'd like to get out in front of the US judges a little bit more often. I feel like it just gives the league, the judges, it tells them that you're willing to go out there. I'm not just going to stay near home just because it's easier. I'll go across the world if I need to. But 100% Cali. I'd like to do Toronto, which is 2 weeks after Cali. Um, and the week after Toronto is Spain. That's the show that I've always said I would do because Emilio, the promoter, he treated us really well last year when I did it. So I told him that I'd like to do it again in 2025. So if my body can handle it, I would like to do Cali, Toronto, and Spain. But I'm going to decide after Cali. See how I do. See how I feel. It's a big flight as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. The U.S. judges definitely like fullness. They
mhm.
definitely like fullness. Um,
Okay,
as long as you still have to be in condition, obviously.
yeah,
But somebody like you who has condition to spare, they
hmm,
definitely like
the
the
fuller
full
look.
the full look. Yeah, obviously somebody who doesn't have the condition to spare, you can't. You're probably not a good decision to make that.
Yeah,
But yeah, with your look, they would definitely like that. I mean, Steve has said it on a handful of interviews. They kind of go for like a fuller. He described it as healthier, which
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like a fuller, healthier look. So as long as you're always going to be in shape. So
Yeah,
I
me and Chris. That's what Chris said. Chris said you're gonna come in because he was quizzing me. He messaged me after Germany. He said, "What did you weigh, by the way, after finals? Did you weigh yourself?" Because I had more to eat because I was sat around waiting, and I just felt hungry. I felt empty, so I was just kind of shoveling in the honey and the rice cakes a bit more than I had done for the morning show and Detroit. And he texted me actually the next day. He said, "By the way, what did you weigh after the finals? Because you looked, your chest and delts looked fuller." So I told him I was like 242, 243, which is like 2 pounds heavier than what we've been competed at prejudging and Detroit. So that's when he texted me and said, "Okay, so next show you're going to be fuller." So I think he knows that he can probably push me a little bit more with the food, and I prefer the fuller look. I don't like to be like I always come in a tiny bit on the flatter side because that's when my detail is ridiculously good. Like the cuts are deep. But the more we push it with Chris, he realizes that I don't soften up. I just fill out. I stay hard and I stay sharp, but I just fill out. If anything, I might look sharper in some poses because the muscles pushing against the skin better. So I think for Cali, he'll probably bring me in a bit fuller and see how we do.
Yeah. The thing about being flat is certain body parts always is different for everybody, but certain body parts are gonna take a hit. You
Oh,
know.
my arms. I don't know why. I don't know if it's my age. But this year, as soon as I flatten out, my triceps and my biceps, especially my left arm, disappear. Like they literally, I can't feel them. Like I can't even pump them up.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
happened at the beginning of prep. I remember we cut the food, and I was looking at my pictures. I rarely look at my pictures. I'll just send them to Chris. But I was looking through just to pick the ones to send to Chris, and I was thinking my arms look really small. Like I think that's where the age might be affecting me. But when I fill out like when I'm 245 to 250, my arms fill right back out and they round off my look a lot more. But I don't know if we did that for the show, I would maybe lose some details somewhere. But I don't know. Well, yeah, my arms and my lats, they seem to be and my upper chest. Those areas go straight away when I'm flat.
yeah. Being flat, but like we saw Andrew at the Arnold, and people were saying, "Oh, his sweeps are look a little bit less," and then you
hmm
come in full, it completely goes away. With Bonak, same thing. As Bonak was getting later in his career, we saw his sweeps leaving, and then his
Yep.
kind of like that roundness in the shoulder arms area kind of flattening out, like you said, the
Yep.
triceps.
Yep.
But guess what? At Detroit, it was
Yeah.
back and better than ever. Honestly, his
Yeah.
sweeps and crazy.
Oh, it was crazy. He took his clothes off in the pump room, and I just looked at him. I looked at my friend James Hollingshead, and we just both like shook our heads. He just looked
Yeah,
ridiculous. So much muscle. I almost want to like do a show where no one shows up. It's just me on stage, and I overshoot the fullness. I
hmm
get peeled. I can get peeled, but I just feel like I want to do a peak week where I just go for all out bursting full, and I just want to see how I land, just as like an experiment. I would always like to do that just to see what it's like, because then you know where the upper limit is, and then you can kind of gauge where you can land. But you never
yeah.
know. It's yeah, yeah.
Would you do? Let's say if you do Cal, right, and
hmm
then you qualify, right?
hmm
Would you be willing to do one more show just to try that out?
I probably do one. I probably do more shows anyway, just
Oh, there
because.
you go.
Just because. I mean, unless for some reason I'm fading, like I'm flattening out, like my body's had enough. It's happened in the past. But if I'm okay, I would 100% do. Like, I would still want to do Toronto and Cali and Spain, even though I've qualified. Just more because Samson, Mr. Olympia, he's put this in my head quite a bit. He's just said, look, you know, we're pros and people were paying to come and see us. So why not give them the opportunity? Because when I do these shows and the crowd, I get to see the crowd afterwards. They all say like how incredible it looked on stage, the condition, the muscle density, and they don't see that on a screen. It's not quite the same. So the way I see it is, I'm not going to be doing this forever. And while I'm a pro and I can get out there and I'm in shape, why not try and get to different cities and countries and meet the fans and put on a show for them, because they'll remember that forever. And as
Exactly.
a pro, I just think I want to do, because back in the early years, I was the guy who did one show and I just disappeared. I didn't want,
Yeah,
I was tired, I was hungry, I wanted to go into off season. I did it. I was quite immature in that sense. I just didn't want to be on stage. So this time around, definitely. And I guess if Chris is willing, then yeah, I would try and come in just bursting full, because I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
people would know I can come in condition by then. So
yeah.
um, Yeah.
So it's funny you say that, but guys that come in like your look, like with
Hmm.
the crazy skin texture, dryness, and like pure condition, right? It actually doesn't come across in pictures as well,
No. Yeah.
right? Or even in person, if you're far, if you're not close enough to the stage,
Mhm.
what's gonna happen? Because I was there at Cal when it was you and Nathan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And being like a shape, structure, size guy like an Andrew,
Hmm.
um,
Of
it
course.
comes across way better in pictures or far away because you
Mm.
can see structural size from a
Yeah.
mile away.
Yeah.
But cameras, we have 8K quality. No matter what kind of cameras you have, you can't pick up the amount of detail that some of
Hmm.
these guys have. And
Definitely.
I remember that seeing Dexter in New York against Rowley, and on the
Yeah.
internet, everybody was like, "What? Rowley is beating him. Look how much bigger he is." And in
Hmm.
person, I don't think it was close. It's just
Right.
it's different. Like Rowley standing there looked like he was 10 weeks out. Once
Yeah.
he hits the pose and holds it, then you see the lines. But it just wasn't in the transitions, the stomach, and it's just different in person
Yeah.
when you have
Yeah.
that detail. So
Hundred
that's
percent.
something. That's something I've
100%.
noticed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So I noticed that with you versus Nathan too. Looking at it, I'm like, man, it's like the detail, there's a big difference. But in the pictures, it was like you guys looked in almost the same condition in the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. No, you're right. I come home and I'm looking at pictures, thinking everyone in the show told me that. Told me something different. But yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah.
100%.
You might see a couple because there were a couple angles I've seen people's videos of you at in what's the last show you did? I'm sorry, the one against
Fibo.
yeah,
Fibo.
and then you see like a crazy amount of detail. You like that's probably closer to what it looked like than the
Yeah.
other
Yeah. Yeah.
pictures,
Yeah.
or even sometimes when some of the photographers they
The
add
editors.
sharpness.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then people are kind of like, I hate when they do that because it doesn't look real. And I'm like, that actually looks closer to how it looks in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
than
Because
the,
Chris was in my room like one day out, and I hit some poses for him. He was like, he was like, wait, wait, wait. Yeah, he got his phone. I was like, I need to send this to Jose and my son. He took the picture and he looked at the picture. He's like, you look way harder. And, the picture doesn't even show. And the picture looked crazy.
yeah,
So for me, I know what you mean because everyone will say, like, it looks totally different in real life.
yeah.
You can visually see everything that's going on under the skin. Whereas
Mhm.
on a screen, you just can't see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like Phil Heath as well. I mean, everybody had Phil Heath winning
Hmm.
regardless. But
Yeah.
Phil in person, you would see him off season and he would look super soft, right? Like, oh my God, he's
Yeah.
so. But in person off season, I'm like when I see him guest post, I'm like, well, he's actually not fat. I still see detail, but then you go home and look at the videos, and you're like, bro, he looks like he looks like a horrible. Like online, he looks
Yeah.
horrible off season,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not how it works. But it sounds. I could probably go all day. I still have a lot of questions I want to ask you, but I don't want to hold you too long. You're still
I'll
there.
come back on. I'll come back
Perfect.
on. It's been fun. I know you have there's a group of you that get together.
Yeah,
If I
yeah.
can make it onto one of those, but honestly, I'll come back on in a couple of weeks or whenever you've got some free time.
All right,
I
all
don't
right.
mind being a regular. We can just pick a topic,
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah.
whatever you think.
Get some questions in there because we usually
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
questions today. So I would definitely love to do that. And for the record, I've been trying to get you on. I think since last contest season. So I'm not one of
I
these
know.
bandwagon podcasts that try to pick you up now because you because you have.
No, no, no. Oh, I know, I know. I'm the one who shies. I've been shying away from podcasts for years. So
Yeah.
one thing I've said to myself this year is just don't say no. Don't say no to podcasts. So I'm going to try and get on. And I know you've been waiting for a long time. So thank you for waiting. Sorry I didn't
Oh,
come on any sooner.
no
But
worries.
yeah, like I said,
Mhm.
I enjoy these. I'm in the game as much as I can because I'm just having so much fun. So the more of this stuff we do, the better for me, honestly. And thank you for letting me have a voice out on your side of the world, and I appreciate that as well. That's the other thing I want to do is just give the followers and the fans an insight into how I see things and my little crazy mind.
Yeah. Spoken like the people's champ. Spoken like the people's champ.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you for coming on, man. You know,
Thank you.
so
Anytime, honestly. Thank you for having me.
there you go. All right, all right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get your meals in and come in and get
You
that
too.
Olympia qualification, brother.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do my best. Are you gonna be there?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay,
At the
cool.
Cal, yeah, I'm gonna be there. Yeah,
Awesome,
if
man.
you,
Be good to
all right,
meet you
brother.
then. All
Yes,
right, brother.
sir.
Take care.